So, welcome back. Here, in this presentation, we'll be looking into the classification of kingdom protista. Um, Kingdom protista it includes a heterogeneous assemblage of several unrelated polyphyletic taxa, and they are being classified into three major groups, namely the fungal protists or fungus-like protists. Then we have the plant-like protists, or otherwise it is referred as algal protists or protophyta. Okay. And obviously the third group, the animal-like protists or the protozoa, which we are more concerned with. As part of the zoology syllabus, we are more concerned with the protozoa. Fine. So we have three groups under kingdom protista, and it has been given like with which group it shows the similarity. We have named the groups, that is fungus-like protists. They show similarity with fungi as well as animals, and that is why it has been given the name fungal protists. Then algal protists or the protophyta, they show characters of both plants as well as animals. And protozoa, they are animal-like protists, and they are more like the animal cells. Okay, so we can see in detail what are the different vertical characters shown by each of the groups. Now, fungal-like protists or the fungus-like protists or the fungal protists, they include saprotrophic or parasitic protists, and they show similarity to both fungi as well as animals. And uh, it comes includes two phyla, the phylum Myxomycophyta and phylum Microsporidia. These Myxomycophyta includes slime molds, which are still a little more familiar. Microsporidia, the common name we call it as microsporidians. Okay. Now, what is the similarity of these two groups with fungi? Because just like fungi, they produce spores. Okay. Very little similarity is shown um, to the fungi, and the only similarity which we can actually specifically mention, it is the ability to produce spores. Okay, and Myxomycophyta, they include slime molds, and they are soil organisms, and they just like protists which we have already studied in detail, they lack cell wall, they resemble amoebae during a part of their life cycle. Then slime molds, during some stages of their life cycle, they even ingest food rather than absorb it. Okay, so that is how they are more similar to the animals, right? Now, there are two groups of Myxomycophyta. We are speaking about the phylum Myxomycophyta, which includes slime molds. Okay, now Myxomycophyta, it includes two groups of slime molds. Based upon whether they have a cellular entity or not, we can group into two: a cellular Myxomycophyta or a cellular slime molds, and cellular slime molds. Okay, as cellular slime molds, as the name indicates, it doesn't have any wall. Okay, it doesn't have any confinement. So it is represented only by a mass of protoplasm which contains numerous nuclei. So it is actually the body of acellular slime molds is represented by mass of protoplasm, multinucleate mass of protoplasm. Hope that is clear. Okay, and we can see that they can be seen creeping along the decaying leaves or logs with the help of pseudopodia. Okay, as already mentioned, it do have certain similarity with amoebas in it with respect to the life cycle. Other than that, they also have locomotory similarity. That is, it is found to move along the decaying leaves or logs on the soil with the help of pseudopodia, the acellular slime molds. Okay, and this creeping multinucleate slime mold is referred as Plasmodium. Don't confuse with the Plasmodium, the genus which infect malaria, but here it is actually the stage is referred as a Plasmodium. It is not a genus or a species, it is a stage. Okay, so Plasmodium. So Plasmodium is actually, in this case, in the slime molds, it is actually the stage of creeping multinucleate slime mold. Okay, and hence acellular slime mold is also referred as plasmodial slime mold, right? Now, plasmodial slime mold, what is the significance of it in the ecosystem? It mainly act as decomposers. Okay, and one example is Physarum, coming under phylum Myxomycophyta. The next, that is a acellular Myxomycophyta. Now, the cellular slime mold are free living amoeboid forms. They feed on soil bacteria. They grow and divide by like mitotic division. And one example is Dictyostelium, right? And we can see that when food supply in the surrounding is almost is diminishing, many of the individuals, they form a tiny mass and they move together in a what do you call in groups. Okay, and this groups is almost similar to the plasmodial stage in the case of a slime mold. So what happens is that in the case of cellular slime molds, many cells come together, but since they move together in groups, it seems like a multinucleate structure, and hence it is referred as a pseudoplasmodium. Okay, and a pseudoplasmodium may be formed of like thousands or more individuals, and they behave as a multicellular animal. Okay, they all move together and they respond to various what you call ecological factors in a coordinated manner. So it actually behaves like a multicellular organism. So that is about the phylum Myxomycophyta. We saw Myxomycophyta. The phylum, it includes slime molds, and there are two kinds of slime molds: the acellular slime mold and cellular slime mold. Acellular slime mold, it is otherwise referred as plasmodial slime mold because their body is represented by multinucleated mass of protoplasm, and that like that kind of a slime mold, a creeping multinucleate slime mold is what is referred as a plasmodium. Okay, and then we have the cellular slime mold. It usually it is free living, feeds on bacteria, soil bacteria, right? And that is a cellular slime mold, and it do have like a cellular entity. Okay. Now, regarding the microsporidia, as the name suggests, it is like a small spore-like parasitic protists. Okay, they are very minute. That is why the name has a micro suffix. Okay, and they are spore-like, more of a spore-like structure. Then intracellular parasites. They are intracellular parasites which infect a wide variety of animals like insects, crustaceans, fishes, etc. Okay, and they were formerly considered under protozoa, but now it has been separated out from protozoa and put under fungal protists. And they are usually found to be obligate intracellular parasites. Obligate in the sense they are strict endoparasite. What is endoparasite? That is the parasite which lives inside the host body, and specifically microsporidia, they are intracellular uh, parasites. Okay, we can even find they are microsporidians pathogenic to man and many other animals. Okay, one example is Nosema, and then we have Microsporidium. Okay, these two are examples for phylum Microsporidium. Okay, now we have the algal protists or Protophyta. They are plant-like protists, and hence what is unique about the plants? They have chlorophyll, right? So they are chlorophyll bearing photosynthetic protists. So all the members under Protophyta, they have chlorophyll and they can photosynthesize. Okay, they constitute major producers of the biosphere. We have already seen Myxomycophyta as decomposers, like fungal protists as decomposers or saprotrophs or parasites. But algal protists, they are producers because of the presence of chlorophyll in them and having the ability to photosynthesize. So they are major producers in many of the ecosystems, and they are grouped under different phyla. We can see the phylum Dinoflagellata, phylum Basilorophyta, phylum Euglenophyta, phylum Cryptophyta, phylum Chlorophyta, and phylum Rhodophyta. Okay, Dinoflagellata, they are otherwise referred as, Dinoflagellata is one of the most important group, and one of the example you are familiar with is actually Noctiluca. Okay, they include it actually includes a large group of photosynthetic protists mainly, and we can also find heterotrophic groups as well. And they are biflagellate in the sense they have two flagella. Okay, all the members of phylum Dinoflagellata, they have two flagella, and their body is usually covered within a shell, and this shell is what is referred as lorica or theca. Okay, it is lorica, Lorica. So the members of the Dinoflagellata, they are being covered with a shell that is outside their body, the membrane. They also have a shell which is called lorica or theca. And as already mentioned, there are plenty of examples. One very good example is Noctiluca. Another example which you have to study as part of your practicals, it is a serratia. Okay, then we have Goniolix, we have Peridinium, etc. Okay, that is a Dinoflagellata. Um, okay, so we will be looking in detail about Dinoflagellata as you have to study one example, that is Noctiluca. Okay, phylum Dinoflagellata, it is otherwise referred as Pyrophyta. Okay, phyta because it contains, yeah, chlorophyll. Okay, they are biflagellates. It's not biflagellata. Photosynthetic critters, or we can even find heterotrophic groups. Their body is enclosed within a shell which is referred as lorica or theca, and mostly you can see the members are marine in nature, and uh, some are freshwater forms are also. I mean, we can come across freshwater forms as well. Then dinoflagellates constitute most important primary producers of marine ecosystems, and we can find some of these dinoflagellates as endosymbionts. Okay, symbiont is actually two organisms, two species which come together and benefit each other. Okay, such kind of association is known as symbiosis, isn't it? And those individuals which come together in symbiosis, they are known as symbiont. Okay, now endosymbiont is actually one of the symbiont lives inside the body of the other symbiont. Okay, that is endosymbiont. Okay, and we can find not only primary producers, but there are endosymbionts of marine animals, in the sense that is there are certain examples of endosymbionts which reside inside marine animals. Okay, one example is zooxanthellae, and they play a very important role in the coral reef biology. Okay, I suppose you know what is coral reefs. Okay, uh, sorry. Then another example is green unicellular symbiotic algae. Again, they are photosynthetic, they are symbiotic. Okay, example is zoochlorallae, right? Then we can also find that some of the marine dinoflagellates, for example, Noctiluca, they like increase in population. You can see this is Noctiluca, the picture, the photograph, and this is the structure. So you can see that it increases in population to such an extent that even though it is microscopic, when it increases in population, it gives a red coloration to the part of the ecosystem where it lives in. Okay, so such kind of phenomenon is also exhibited by dinoflagellates, and that is referred as red tide. It makes the sea surface red, as we have already seen in the picture. Okay, and actually red tide, when it occurs, it is disastrous to the marine life over there. Because this kind of a dense population, it will actually take away all the oxygen, it will consume the oxygen and deprive the rest of the organisms from oxygen. And also due to its like a higher population, it may even result in certain toxic substances to build up in that particular part of the ecosystem. So red tide is actually harmful for the ecosystem in one. Now, another feature we can see is many of the members of dinoflagellates, they are bioluminescent. Bioluminescent in the sense they exhibit bioluminescence, they emit light. Okay, and that makes a particular part of the sea glowing in darkness. Okay, bioluminescence, that is they emit light, and this light emission, it is due to the presence of a chemical which is known as luciferin in them, which on oxidation it gets converted to this glowing light. Okay, and it is done with the help of luciferase enzyme. So this is again, so bioluminescence is a property of many of the dinoflagellates. As we have already mentioned, the one of the examples, it is Noctiluca, which we have which we will be looking in detail later, and another is you have the Goniolix, and then Serratium. Okay, so these other groups like Basilarophyta, they are diatoms. That includes diatoms. Again, it is also very important part of the marine ecosystem. Euglenophyta, it includes euglena and other euglena like flagellates. Then cryptophyta, they include the cryptomonas or chylomonas, rhodomonas, etc. And then chlorophyta, it includes green algae, and rhodophyta, it includes the red algae. Okay, so these two which you have already been studied in your botany classes, the green algae and the red algae. Okay.